Welcome and thank you for joining us for today's DealerOn webinar, how your dealership can create a 25% lift in sales. My name is Eliana Raggio and I'll be your moderator today. And today's webinar is being presented by DealerOn. For anyone who isn't familiar with DealerOn, well, we're an award-winning website development company and digital agency, best known for our amazing SEO, the absolute best customer service, and the highest converting website designs in the industry, including the brand new Chameleon Responsive website platform. We're so committed to lead conversion, optimization, and customer service that DealerOn is still the only company in the industry to offer a money-back lead guarantee program. So does your website company guarantee you a 50% lift in leads or your money back? Well, maybe you should check us out at our gorgeous brand new DealerOn website at DealerOn.com. And we have a great show in store for you today. We're very pleased to have not one, but two auto retailing experts, Clint Burns and Brian Pasch, as our presenters today. First, Clint Burns is the founder and CEO of The Next Up. With more than 2 decades of expertise in every area of dealership operations, Clint has championed the push for excellence in guest services across the automotive industry. Since his early involvement as the founder of Dealer Development Solutions, one of the first CRMs in the space, Clint's reputation has grown to become the leading expert on retail sales process in the nation. Widely known as an enthusiastic advocate of the industry, a charismatic speaker at conferences, and a trusted authority on the role dealerships play in advancing the guest experience, Clint is a leading voice in dealership operations, loyalty, and guest relations, and he can be reached at cburns@thenextup.com. And joining Clint today is the one and only Brian Pasch, CEO of PCG Research. He has over 20 years of information technology and marketing leadership. In 2012, he founded PCG Consulting to provide vendor-neutral advice to business leaders looking to create a comprehensive marketing strategy that includes the latest opportunities in traditional, digital, and social media. Brian, of course, is an active speaker at automotive industry conferences, 20 groups, and digital marketing workshops. He's also an avid writer and blogger, providing invaluable commentary on the topics of search engine optimization and digital marketing. And he can be reached at brian@pcgmailer.com. Now, during the presentation, if you have any questions, please use the question feature located on the corner of your screen to submit them. At the end of the presentation, we'll answer those questions of general interest. If we're unable to get to your question live, don't worry, we're going to try to respond to you by email later today. Also, don't forget, a link to download a copy of this webinar recording will also be emailed to you later today for your reference, and please feel free to share it with your friends and colleagues. Oh, and guess what? Our good friends at The Next Up, they are giving away one heck of a prize today. On the webinar, one of you lucky webinar attendees is going to win a newly released 12-inch Apple MacBook in gold. That's right. You heard me. I can't think of any other prize that could be more awesome than this right now. This 256 gigabyte laptop of awesomeness is valued at $1,300, and it could be yours. You have to be on the live broadcast to win it, though, so stay tuned. You could be the one walking away with this awesome prize today. Also, at the conclusion of the webinar, you're going to receive a short survey, so fill it out, because we're always looking for quality feedback from our audience. Today, we're going to randomly select a couple of people from all those completed surveys to also win some Google prizes. And hey, do you tweet much? You know what? We hope you do. We'd love to see what you have to say about today's presentation, so please tag us in it. You can use hashtag DealerOnWebby. I'm at Eliana Raggio. You can also hit up Clint at The Next Up, and Brian Pasch at Automotive SEO 2. We look forward to seeing what you're saying. Now, let's get started. Let's learn how your dealership can create a 25% lift in sales. Let's start off with Clint. Clint, how are you?
Great. Good morning or good afternoon.
Thank you so much for being here today. You're a first-time presenter, but you know what? You're a long-time member of the auto industry, and we thank you so much for your expertise today. And your cohort in crime today, of course, is none other than Brian Pasch. Brian, so nice to have you back on the show, sir. How are you? But Brian? No. Did we lose Brian? That was quick. All right, Brian. Hopefully you can call in very soon. Clint, I think you and I should just get started. Brian will be back with us any second now.
Great, great. Well, we've done an extensive amount of research for this project, and we're really excited to share it with everyone today.
Yeah, I got to tell you, wait, before we even get started, this title, it almost sounds too good to be true. So you're telling me you guys did research and you found that there is a way that any dealership, almost any dealership, can create a 25% lift in sales. Too good to be true. I'm looking forward to seeing what you're saying. Where do we begin?
Definitely, definitely. Well, it's going to be exciting. We're definitely going to share. If everyone sticks with us, we're going to even give them a formula of how they're going to be able to calculate that as well.
Oh.
We're actually going to first off start out with a poll, if you don't mind.
That sounds like a great idea. Audience, you got 4 poll questions coming your way today, and the first one is on the screen now. It's a pretty simple one. Are you currently running an open or a closed sales floor at your dealership? Please select one of the following answers: open, closed, or I don't know. And that's okay if you don't know, because I'm sure Clint and Brian are going to give us the definitions of what an open and closed sales floor is. So then you will know. All right. So open, closed, or I don't know. The votes are still coming in. Audience, you are already awesome today. And keep in mind, you're going to have 3 more poll questions coming your way a little bit later on. We hope you are as active in answering those questions as you are in this first one. We do appreciate your participation in all of our poll questions. It really, really helps us out. And this particularly will help out Clint and Brian with their presentation today. All right, Clint, are you ready to see the answer to this?
Definitely.
All right, Brian, are you there with us yet?
I'm there.
Yay,
I'm ready.
he made it back. All right, here we go. Let's close this poll and share the results. Okay, 54% of today's audience say they are running an open sales floor. Only 8% of today's audience say it's a closed sales floor. And 38% of today's audience says that they don't know. Looks like we got to start off by telling people what the difference is between an open and closed sales floor. 38% don't know. Gentlemen, back to you.
Great. Well, I want to thank everyone for being on the webinar today. And if you followed me on Facebook and social media, you know that I love going to Italy. I don't know how many of you have ever been to Europe where you walk down a piazza and there's normally one person standing out front with a menu to pull you in to the restaurant. And that's kind of, well, very different from, say, life in the United States, but you expect it in Europe. But what would happen if every restaurant had 5 or 6 people with menus out in the piazza? Could you imagine as customers would try to maybe look at that menu board to have 4 or 5 people come up to them and come on in, come on in, come on in? Well, you know that even sometimes that one person's a little pushy, but what is that first experience if 5 or 6 waiters came up to you, all with menus in the hand, all trying to get you seated? Well, in a similar way, when a customer walks into our dealership and 5 or 6 or 10 people are on the front steps or in the lot, just kind of ready to attack, well, you can understand how that first impression may not be ideal, and we're going to talk about how we need to adapt and change to today's consumer to give them that best first impression. So I'm going to pass this over to Clint.
Great, thanks, Brian. The traditional sales floor is obviously creating conflicts right now that are costly to your dealership and the guest experience. Eliana, have you been to a dealership recently and pulled in and seen a group of salespeople standing around?
Yes, I have. And I've been to one where the opposite is true too. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm hoping there's some kind of a balance that you can find, because when you walk in and there's 17 people who are right on top of you, it's a very uncomfortable feeling, just like when you walk into a dealership and I was there for 3 hours and couldn't get help, and I wound up leaving not buying a car. That wasn't good either. So
exactly. It's intimidating, right? It's intimidating. People wonder, it's either feast or famine. There's either too many sales reps standing around or not enough at all. So it's not efficient use of their time. It encourages bad behavior. Obviously, we polled the audience today, and 54% of the dealers are the audience right now are in an open floor environment where salespeople can come and go and grab customers as they please. The traditional floors now also increase high employee turnover. One thing that we can note here is that we've done an extensive amount of research. And on average, salespeople are not in front of guests for 5.5 hours a day. That's how much time that they can be focused on being productive and efficient and effective. By going to a managed retail sales process, it's going to allow the sales staff to be efficient and effective. Meanwhile, it's going to provide visibility on what's really going on in the showroom today. It's going to increase the opportunity, or the value of the opportunity. It's going to reward for the proper behavior in the store, and it's going to improve manager insight and involvement. We want to talk about where the managed retail sales process fits in. In this swim lane, it's going to demonstrate exactly what's going on. Right now, currently, you have your lead management and your internet leads and your dealer website, which then go right into your CRM. And you have your traditional showroom traffic as your return appointments and your internet appointments showing up, but not all of them go into your CRM. A managed retail sales process would start at your showroom traffic, your appointments and your walk-ins, and it would cover over your welcome, your needs analysis, the presentation and test drive, over any vehicle selection, deal negotiation, any F&I or delivery. It's going to give you 100% accountability. Time for another poll, if you don't mind, Eliana.
Oh, not at all. All right, audience, here's your second of 4 poll questions, and it's on the screen now. We want to know, what percentage of customers are being logged into your CRM? Well, that could be a tricky one to answer, but let's see if you can help us out. Please select one of the following answers. Do you believe less than 50% of your customers are actually being logged into your CRM? Do you think it's somewhere between 50 and 75%? Between 76 and 99%? Maybe you're just missing just a few? Are you kidding? Of course, we get all of them. That is one of the answers too. Or the last answer is, I have no idea. And you know what? That can't be good from me or my dealership. So what percentage of customers are actually being logged into your CRM? Less than 50%, somewhere between 51 and 75%, between 76 and 99%, all of them, of course, or I have no idea. And I got to tell you, our audience is on point today. Almost everyone has voted. Audience, you rock. Thank you so much.
Wow.
Close this poll and share the results. Okay, so 16% of today's audience say that they admit it's less than half of the customers. 32% of today's audience say that they think it's between 51 and 75%. Now, the majority, 41% of today's audience feel that they're hitting it pretty good. They're getting between 76 and 99%. They're just missing a few of them. Only 9% of today's audience said that they are sure all of them are being registered into their CRM, and only 2% of today's audience admit they have no idea. Clint, Brian, does that help you out?
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, definitely optimistic crowd.
Are you going to tell us we're wrong?
Well, one thing that we can do is if you stick with us till the end, we're going to give you a way to calculate how many customers you might be missing and confirm those information that you have.
Oh, okay, let's do that. All right, back to you.
Going to a managed retail sales process, we have examples here that Sofield Honda went to #1 in their district within the first 30 days. We had Lithia Toyota of Abilene go to an all-time net within 1 year. We also had a whole group have all their appointments up and their conversion ratios increase as well. Bob Moore Automotive Group out of Oklahoma. And even as far as Australia, in Parramatta, where we had West End Mazda, had 15 sales reps with a managed retail sales rep for go to 24 units within a short amount of time. We're ready for another poll, Eliana.
Ooh, that was quick. All right, audience. Look, we're flying through these poll questions. So thank you so much. You did so good on the first 2. I expect nothing less from you this time. The question on the screen is, have you ever considered moving to a closed sales floor? Please select one of the following answers. Yes or no. Simple enough, right? Have you ever considered moving to a closed sales floor?
And what we mean by closed sales floor, have you ever considered some type of managed floor where people just, salespeople just don't go out and grab customers as they come up on the lot based on their own motivation? Have you ever moved any, even if it was a manual system, a manual rotation or an automated rotation, or it's just a free-for-all, people get the customers as they want.
Ah, okay. So thank you so much for clarifying that, Brian. I appreciate it. And audience, you are wonderful as always. Votes are still coming in, so I'll give you another 5 seconds, and then we'll close this poll and share the results with our presenters, Brian and Clint. By the way, if you have any questions for Brian and Clint, don't hesitate to send them in. Of course, we have a very robust Q&A session usually at the end of the presentation. We'd love to see if we could help you out at your dealership. Well, I got some really round numbers over here, so I think I'm going to close this poll and share the results. Any day now, it's going to share it. Okay, here we go. 40% of today's audience said yes, they have considered moving to a closed sales floor, but a majority, 60%, said no. Clint, Brian, what do you think of that?
Great. Well, I mean, that's kind of standard out there in the industry. Brian, did you have something that you wanted to add on that?
Yeah, and I think in general this is that this audience is the perfect audience if the majority of them have not considered, but we noticed still 40% said that they did consider. It doesn't mean that they moved to a managed sales process, so we're going to have a really active conversation of why now and today at the peak of automotive sales, why this is the best time to change. I'd like to encourage everyone on today's webinar to download a copy of our research report. Each month, PCG Research is publishing a comprehensive deep dive into matters that affect dealers. The Next Up research report is one of those things that if you are in favor of a managed retail sales process, by the end of today's webinar, get this PDF in the hands of your management team, your sales managers, to create a more active dialogue. Let's take a look at some of the research highlights that were published in our PCG research report. Number one, people may have considered a retail sales process, and 40% of you said you have considered it, but not everyone pulls the trigger. And, well, the biggest reason why people think they should but don't was that they thought they would sell less cars. Now, in our survey, many people felt, hey, I had no fears. Okay, I knew it would give me a better experience, but I want to encourage you, if you have people in your organization that feel that they would sell less cars or that a managed retail sales process isn't fair, please hold on. We're going to give you ample data. We also have a dealer visiting with us on today's show that's going to share with him, share his experience of converting over. Let's look at some more data so we can set the stage for our discussion. This is a statistic from Mercedes-Benz of Hoffman Estates. Before they switched to a managed retail sales process, they had 400 showroom visits logged in their CRM. They were converting at 32%, and they sold 128 cars. Once they moved from an open sales floor to a managed retail sales process, look at that, an extra 160 visits were logged in the CRM. More accurately, their conversion rate wasn't skewed by not logging people who visited, but look at that jump in sales. Ladies and gentlemen, on today's webinar, this is extremely important. Whatever you think your logged customer ratios are, if you're not using a managed retail sales process, we've seen anywhere from 20% to 100% of showroom ups not being logged. But let me make this case. When you feel that your system is working great, your open floor is working great, well, let me tell you this, that when you move to a managed retail sales process, your own employees have more time to work their opportunities. And let me be clear about this. We have a broken incentive model in the retail industry. We have salespeople that are trying to feed their families, and we are telling them that they have to work their leads in the CRM. But if the conflict is, if they don't stand on the point and get that next customer, if they don't feel that they're going to have a fair shot at showroom visits, then they're going to stand on point as much as possible, and they're going to ignore their CRM test. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to acknowledge an open sales floor creates inherent conflict in getting work done in the CRM. Let's take a look at some other data. The key here for everyone is, what is your potential? If 60% of you never considered going to a managed retail sales process, look at the spread. We've had dealers in a survey saying they saw up to 100% and as low as 10%. I don't want to make any unrealistic promises, but I would tell you that at least for the dealers that I share with Clint, that they've seen anywhere from a 25 to 50% increase in logged ups. And when Clint shows you the formula, you are going to be able to determine how many ups you're missing in the CRM and how many sales you're missing. When you look at the numbers, there is absolutely no case a dealer principal or general manager could make to me that an open sales floor with today's consumer is the right choice for a progressive dealer. Let's move on. One of the other things that we shared in the research report is what happens when you can actually see all your customers in the CRM that visit your showroom, and you can see how many of them actually had a test drive. Now, this is very, very important. Salespeople don't tell the truth in the CRM.
What?
I know that's a big shock. It's a big shock. It's a big shock. Ladies and gentlemen, with a managed retail sales process, you can actually track if your salesperson left a lot in a vehicle with a customer, meaning you have 100% accountability, so that if you look at this data, if a customer comes in and touches a manager, has a manager introduction, and has a test drive, those visits close at 35%. But if we eliminate the manager introduction, or if we eliminate the test drive, our conversion goes down significantly. But if we don't have a managed retail sales process, then people are going to fudge the CRM, and you're going to have no accurate picture of what's going on in your showroom and on the lot. Let's move on. The last thought is that there's been a number of research reports saying that the average consumer is visiting 1.4 or 1.5 dealerships. This statistic may be flawed because of how we are logging ups. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a client that was logging around 500 ups a month, and when they went to the managed retail sales process, they were logging 1,000 ups, meaning 500 people a month were not being logged in the CRM, and this was a well-run store, at least they thought. Ladies and gentlemen, you may be just completely ignorant on how broken your lot and showroom process is, which means that probably consumers are visiting 2 to 3 dealerships, but our data in our industry is so dirty that it actually presents some false data points, and well, maybe we're making some poor decisions based on that. Let's move on, Clint. I'd like to move to not just what I have to say or Clint has to say. We have a special guest, Joe Vickers from Valley High Honda. He took the step. He didn't just think about changing to a managed retail sales process. He took the step. And Joe, for our listeners today, could you frame for us basically what you thought was happening at your dealership, why you decided to move to a managed retail sales process, and then what did you see after that change?
Hi, Joe.
Good morning. Good morning. Good afternoon, everybody. For us, I had a tough challenge when I came into the dealership because there was a wild, wild west type setup where people stood on the point, just like we talked about. And we're not in a conducive area for that anyways, because it's a high desert and it gets really, really hot and it gets really, really cold. And with that being said, everybody had to stand in one place to find shade or find shelter, and you would see customers drive on the lot and drive off the lot. The problem was there's people who've been here for several years, and I refer to things as a little differently. It may be a little rough, but I kind of look at it like a heroin addict. When people stand on the point and they're looking for the customer, they just want to grab a customer, and the problem is they do nothing else all day long, and my customers don't get followed up with, and that makes it tough because I know we're losing deals to other dealerships that are right around us in the auto mall. So I had to come up with a strategy to do something, and I'd worked with Next Up before, so I knew what I wanted, and I knew the company had it at another store prior to that and got rid of it. So I had my challenges, and I developed a system where I started at the beginning of the year and put out a bonus for a top salesman, and it was a big bonus so people would be chasing it, because my fear was I was going to lose good people when I closed the floor. And I didn't want that to happen. So those really good salesmen that sell a lot of cars, when I put them on the closed system for 90 days, I closed the floor in August and went August, September, October, and November is the bonus payout. Once I closed the floor, they weren't going to go anywhere because they were chasing that big bonus. And at the end of it all, I was able to take 90-day statistics of the floor being closed, and not the best months of the year, and compare those to any other 90 days that they wanted to choose out of the grid on what they made or how many cars they sold, and none of them could say that the closed floor hurt them. In fact, it helped them. They sold more cars and they made more money. So, and that's without the bonus, just on what they were making commissions and selling cars, and the fact that they were selling more cars. So it was a sneaky way to do it, but it worked, and the store continues to thrive on it. You know, we've gone from selling 130 to 135 cars on average to selling 180 to 200 cars on average consistently. So it's definitely helped us a lot, and I would recommend this to anybody.
That is an amazing difference. And you really did find that your CRM inputs went up by as much as 50%?
Well, yeah, because we have a process where we do a daily match back from Next Up to the CRM. So it's my team leaders are looking at what's in the Next Up, and they're looking at what's in the CRM, and we're making sure that those numbers match up. So when you have a salesman that's slipping in the process, you know that daily, and you can correct it, and that way it doesn't go for 30 or 60 days as a problem. And it's not more work. It's simple. You know, you're going from one report to the other report and matching them up, and that's absolutely it. It's a few minutes of your time, and you're on the road.
And I'm sorry, Brian. I have questions for him too. I'm just curious. Did you alter the number of salespeople on your sales floor?
No, I mean I've added more salespeople from when I first got here, obviously because we were selling more cars, and you know that promotes a problem because when they're with the guests, you're missing guests. So I probably went from 15 salesmen, I think, when I initially came into the store, and now we're at 18 salesmen when we're fully staffed, and then I have an internet department of 4 more people. And I have my 2 vehicle exchange people. So the total sales force has only grown by about 6 people from where it was before.
It's fascinating. Brian, what were you going to say? I'm sorry to cut you off.
No. One of the story, and Clint can say this, but Joe, I'd like your feedback. It's not the Next Step or managed retail sales process doesn't just protect, or in the way you've done it, protect your best salesman. There was a great story of a dealer who had a really strong female salesperson that they had a lot of confidence in, but she was not thriving in an open floor because of the competition and kind of like pack mentality. And the general manager was thinking of, well, this person's not going to make it. I'm going to probably have to let this person go. When they put in the managed retail sales process, this girl became one of the top 3 salesmen in the dealership month after month. And what I learned is that certain personalities don't like to fight at the lot. They don't want to fight at the point. They want to avoid conflict. Yet they're really great people to have in retail. An open floor kind of discourages those people. Joe, did you see that as well, that you can hire a more diverse personality for your sales because it's fair?
Brian, you're right on point with that, because when I came into the dealership, there was one female salesperson. She was actually in my fleet department. That's all that was here. And I run about 30% of my staff is female now. And you're right. They don't. Every once in a while, you can find an aggressive female that will get out there and get in the mix of the boys and is not in any way affected in that environment. But the majority of the time they are, and they don't want to be in that fight mentality. So we're on a 30-minute rotation. My salespeople are not on the point for more than 30 minutes waiting for an up. So that allows them to get back to work, and it keeps things moving. We're very pleased with the outcome of that, because they're not standing there for 2 hours. You know, sometimes in the high desert, there could be a couple hours before you see somebody. And I don't have to experience that drag or that burnout that they get from being there waiting and waiting and waiting. And my girls do really well. I mean, I generally have 1 or 2 girls in the top, 3 or 4 positions in the dealership, so they're running head-to-head with the guys. So you are definitely right on point on that.
Great. Clint, I think it's a good time to explain to people how a managed retail sales process works.
Great. Well, and I want to add, and thank you, Joe, and one thing I want to add is the one salesperson that you mentioned, Brian, I believe she has over 85 units out already this year, here to date. So this is somebody that was selling somewhere between 3 to 5 units a month. So we want to talk about increasing the value of an opportunity. The open floor environment doesn't create a culture that allows salespeople to benefit. By putting salespeople on a queue, it's going to allow the salespeople to slow down and love the one they're with. Right now, if you have an open floor environment, if you look out into your showroom, if you don't see a salesperson, you don't know if they're with a guest or not. I'm going to ask you, members of the audience, how often have you been greeted by a guest on the showroom asking for help? Does it happen daily? How often do you look out into your lot and see if there's a guest unattended and if they've been helped or not? So again, by setting up a queue or rotation, it allows salespeople to be efficient and effective, but also give you a total accountability. Eliana, do you mind doing our next poll question?
No, not at all. You know what? I think this is actually our last poll question of the day. So audience, it's on your screen now. We want to know what's happening at your dealership. Please take the time to answer this question. How many fresh customers are each of your sales reps getting per day? How many fresh customers are each of your sales reps getting per day? Please select one of the following answers. Do you believe it's 1, 2, 3, 4 or more, or you just don't know? And that's fine too. How many fresh customers are each of your sales reps getting per day? And by the way, Mr. Vickers, I want you to know you already have some fans on the show. Dave wrote in, so when can we schedule Joe Vickers to do a whole webinar? So I just want you to know about that.
Awesome.
I do think it's fascinating, though. Joe, I hope you'll stick around for the Q&A session. Audience, if you have questions for any of our presenters, that includes Clint Burns and, of course, Brian Pasch, and, of course, our special guest, Joe Vickers, well, send those questions in. We're going to get to them as soon as we can. All right, audience, thank you so much for your wonderful participation in our poll question. I'm going to close this poll and share the results now. Are you ready, fellas?
We are ready.
Yes.
All right, let's do this. All right. 17% of today's audience said 1. 33%, which is the majority, by the way. So a third of today's audience said 2. Another 17% said that they believe their sales reps get 3 a day. Only 5% of today's audience said that they believe their sales reps get 4 or more fresh ups. And wow. 29% said they don't know.
Great information. I mean, the 29% that don't know, that's the ones that we want to find out. Where are those customers? How many customers are they really getting?
See, and that's my question. With this closed process, this closed sales floor, would that 29% then be reduced to 0 because you would know?
Yes, 100%.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. All right, let me hide this. And back to you, gentlemen.
Great. Well, what I want to do is talk about rewarding for the proper behavior, and I want you to think about your open floor environment that you created right now. Think about the salespeople that we tell to go get appointments. I remember when I was a sales manager, I would constantly tell salespeople, go get an appointment, go work on getting appointments in, because I knew the value of an appointment. If you have an appointment, they come in, you know that you're going to close or convert at a higher ratio. Yet that salesperson is with a guest from start to finish with that higher conversion ratio. They have a delivery. They can be with a guest for 2 to 2.5 hours. Meanwhile, what are the other salespeople doing? They're out getting more fresh opportunities. The salespeople that never set appointments are handling and talking to more customers and burning through them and costing the store money. We want to get improved manager involvement. By going to a managed retail sales process, you're going to be able to get the managers involved. I'm sure if we polled everyone and asked if you're trying to get managers involved, you would all try to say yes or think so. But if you don't really know about the customers that exist, you can't get managers involved. And right now, the most important things that you can do are test drive the vehicle and get managers involved. We showed the slide earlier today. If a manager is involved, it's going to increase the conversion or closing ratio dramatically. Additionally, it's going to increase the manager insight, really knowing who your valuable players are. Who are the ones that are costing you money? Is it the salesperson that's selling the most vehicles? Is it because they're talking to the most guests? Is the salesperson that's selling you 20 vehicles a month talking to 200 customers, 150 customers, or somebody that might be selling 15 units a month for you, say for instance, is only talking to 50? Again, it's kind of like a batting average if you don't know how many times they went to bat. We want to talk about the value of test drives. And we actually have been able to geo-fence and now track test drives live at all times. So we have a wealth of information and data on the test drives. We obviously know the proposals, everyone knows the write-ups, and the closing and conversion ratios. Right now, I'm going to tell you that 50% of the consumers hitting our lots today are not getting a test drive. There's kind of this epidemic out there right now that exists, and that the consumers are doing a bunch of research on the internet. They're coming in somewhat transaction ready. They might ask for a specific make and model and features, and the salespeople are missing a step. The test drive, again, the biggest value builder, and it's costing the stores money. Okay? They're assuming that the salesperson is already, or the customer is already sold, and they're not. Last month alone, we tracked over 200,000 showroom activities, and we took everyone that didn't test drive a vehicle, and the conversion ratio was only 2%.
50 sounds like a lot. 50% are not getting the test drive.
Yes, 50% of the consumers hitting the lot today are not being given a test drive.
And so the 50% that are getting the test drive of the 50% that aren't getting the test drive, only 2% of them actually bought a car?
Yes.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah. And it's really important, and we're going to obviously have an active Q&A session, but with an open sales floor, the best, most passionate managers, and I have lots of them that were running an open sales floor and then moved to the next up, they were blown away on what they didn't know. And, you know, there's this idea that you only can manage what you know, and of course there's a lot of decisions we make based on inaccurate data, but where there's an opportunity to lock down how many people came on the lot, how many times were salesmen, you know, assigned a new customer, were they on a test drive? The best feedback from this research with a managed retail sales process was after the dust was settled, what percentage of the dealers using the product would recommend to their colleagues? Now listen, I've done surveys for website companies, ad agencies. I've never seen a product get an 87% recommendation rate. That's very high. You always have disgruntled people. You have people who say the system doesn't work. But if your peers, for the dealers and managers on today's webinar, if that moves you, I will tell you that get a demo, understand the numbers, download the research report. It is something that you must consider because, well, the smartest operators I know, some highest volume stores in the country are using a managed retail sales process, and they don't want to talk about it to their peers because they know that their peers are losing gross, they're losing sale, and they're not going to tell them. Our goal here, and I want to thank DealerOn, is that basically we're opening the industry's eyes to something more profound and, well, a requirement today, I think, to operate a dealership. Clint, the next slide is just a reminder to all of you that Eliana put in the handout section, the research report. You can download it right here in your control panel under handouts, or you can go to the site. But if you have any doubters in your organization that a managed retail sales process can't work, get them this research report, because what DealerOn is doing is really a profound opportunity for you to challenge status quo and to improve your sales opportunities, converting into actual sales.
I want to point out, thank you very much for that, by the way. I want to point out that Poya wrote in, I'm excited to know more about the next up. So Poya, I hope you download that report that's in the handout section, as Brian just pointed out. And Bill wrote in, this tool is the missing link for any store running an A to Z internet sales strategy. So thank you so much for that comment, Bill. Very much appreciated. Yes, you did. Okay, great, Poya. Thank you so much. And, oh, no, I think I just deleted something I wasn't supposed to. No, it's not, but we're going to get to that soon. Audience, we're going to get to the Q&A session very shortly, so please get your questions in as quickly as you can. Thank you. Clint, is this you?
Yep.
Yeah, well, Brian, suggested resources, if you need to get a... Hello?
No, go ahead.
For suggested resources, please go to thenextup.com or pcgresearch.com. We want to talk about the takeaway. Earlier we mentioned a way to calculate missing deals. If you take the number of your sold units retail and you multiply that by 25, or multiply that by 4, which is 25% closing ratio, which is a national average, that would equal the actual showroom visits that you have. Then look in your CRM and find out how many consumers or customers are logged. Subtract them out. That will give you the missing opportunities that you had at your store. At that same 25% national average closing ratio, that would equal the number of additional deals that you can get. For an example, if you are selling 150 vehicles a month at a 25% closing ratio, you would have had 600 visits. I'm guessing that you're probably only logging 70%. I think that's where it came into our poll as well, the majority of the people. That's 420 customers in your CRM. That would equal 180 customers that were missing at a 25% closing ratio. It's an additional 45 deals a month.
Huh. That is crazy.
And that's our presentation.
Okay, wow, that was really, really eye-opening. Awesome presentation, Clint and Brian, and of course, Mr. Vickers, thank you so much for being here as well. Audience, you're sending in your questions, and I love it. And we're going to get to your questions in just a moment. If you haven't gotten your question in, let me tell you, you better get it in, because we're going to rip through these questions fast and furious, and we're going to try and see if we can help you out at your dealership. Now, before we get to your questions, though, I have been looking forward to this. It is that time. If you missed it at the beginning of the webinar, I announced our good friends at the Next Up. They're giving away a killer prize on today's webinar. One of you lucky webinar attendees is going to win a newly released 12-inch Apple MacBook in gold, no less. I'm so jealous because, you know, come on, you're the gold standard, right? Yeah, this 256 gigabyte laptop of awesomeness is valued at $1,300, and it could be yours. Get ready, get to your keyboards, because the first person to write in the correct response to our giveaway question is going to be winning this awesome prize today. Good luck, everyone. Of course, vendors, I know you're out there. You know we love you. But please sit this one out. This prize is intended for dealership personnel only. Of course, we appreciate you. And audience, here we go. Good luck, everyone. Here's your question. Now listen to the whole question before you answer, okay? Earlier on in the presentation, we heard about Mercedes-Benz of Hoffman Estates, who had 400 logged showroom visits and had a 32% conversion rate. and they sold 128 cars. When they switched to the next up, they had significantly more logged showroom visits, but they had a more accurate conversion rate of 28%. The question is, how many cars did they sell with the next up that month? And I cannot believe, you know what, you skimmed over that, and I cannot believe how many people knew the answer to this. Let me scroll up here. This is crazy. I thought for sure that was a trick question, but you know what? No, really, I really thought. I thought you said it so fast that no one would have picked it up, and I'm surprised at how good you people are. Believe it or not, Poya, you said you wanted to know more about the next up. You just got your chance, Poya. You are our winner today. Poya Sadek? I'm sure I bungled that one, but Poya, congratulations. You are the winner of this awesome brand new 12-inch MacBook. I am so jealous. You have another one for me, right? No. Well, Poya, if you wouldn't mind, please write in your dealership name so we can give you a proper congratulations, and your mailing address would be very helpful. Oh, okay. Malloy Hyundai. Poya Sadek from Malloy Hyundai. Oh, I better write this down, I guess. And audience, thank you so much for playing along. Don't worry. You know what? We give away cool prizes every week. You could win one again next week. All right? You're in Woodbridge, Virginia. Thank you so much, Poya. We do need your exact mailing address, so if you could send that in, that would be great. Thank you to everyone for playing along. Of course, congratulations to our winner, Poya. And of course, we want to thank our good friends at the Next Up for their incredible generosity. That was fun. Okay, Clint, Brian, are you ready for these very tough questions from our audience?
Yes.
All right, here we go.
We are ready. We are ready.
Okay, first one is actually a comment that came in when we were first discussing an open versus a closed sales floor. David wrote in, he says, we just recently changed to a closed floor because we have several green peas that were blowing through ups before they even got inside. The closed floor has definitely helped us with that. Thank you so much for that feedback, David. I appreciate that.
Great.
Okay, now, Frank here, he wrote me a very long question. So I'm going to read it to both of you, and we'll see if either of you or both of you have some words of wisdom that you can impart to our dear friend Frank. Frank wrote in, our dealership is family owned for over 40 years, has little brand awareness or recognition, uses lead management CRM, and is having an extremely difficult time getting responses from leads despite attempts at texting, emailing, and calling. The phone numbers could be fake, or it's voicemail only, the emails go unanswered, etc. And we do very little marketing aside from car site links. What can we do to encourage responses and compete against bigger name dealerships? Again, Brian and Clint, this is from Frank. Sounds like he definitely needs your help.
So
Brian,
Frank,
that sounds like a one right in your wheelhouse.
yeah. So Frank, when a CRM is just a tool for accountability, and of course a managed retail sales process feeds into the CRM. The magic really is, what are the workflows and the word tracks your team is using? Remember, a CRM requires that you understand what the consumer asked. Are you answering their questions? Are your emails being delivered? Do you have a pleasant and persistent sales process? And what I'll do for you, Frank, because you asked this great question, I will send you a PDF copy of our book, Selling Cars in the Digital Age, which outlines a world-class internet sales process with the CRM workflow, with the CRM scripts, email template suggestions. For your benefit coming to today's webinar, I will get that to Eliana right now, and she can add it to the handouts. I think, Frank, this will really help you inspect what you're doing in the dealership.
Frank, I really hope that helps you out. If you have a follow-up question, please send it on in. As soon as I get this thing from Brian, I will stick it into the handouts section so you can download that as well. And okay, let's go to our next question, which comes in from Linda. Linda says, when reports are made as to how many dealerships a customer visits, isn't that information coming from customer surveys versus dealership CRMs? That's a good question. I imagine that the difference would be sizable. Brian, do you happen to know where that information is coming from?
Well, obviously, the data that has come from, say, Polk or J.D. Powers or DME, different people have done these research reports. But remember that consumers, you know, if they're going to, say, in a sales process for 3 or 4 months, how accurately do they remember how many places they visit? I don't know the accuracy of that. So what I think some of the survey companies do is look at CRM and DMS across, say, dealer groups to see how many times did Brian Pasch show up in CRM over this 4-month period. Now, if you work at a large dealer group, you see this all the time. A customer comes in at your BMW store, a customer comes in the Honda store, and what do you do with those people? So part of the data, I think, is vetted through the participation of dealer groups or CRM companies, and that's why I'm saying that I think that the fact that we are not logging anywhere from 25 to 75% of our showroom traffic can skew the validation of the survey data points.
Thank you so much. Very, very valid points that you have there. Linda, if you have a follow-up question or comment, please don't hesitate to write on in. We'd love to hear back from you. All right, gentlemen, your next question comes to you from Teresa. She says, what is the standard closing ratio with a managed retail sales process? And how many appointments should a dealership have on a daily basis? Ooh, Teresa's throwing down the gauntlet now. So
Yeah.
Should we go to Joe for this, or Brian and Clint, have you guys figured out what the standard closing ratio, or does it matter,
Sure.
like parts of the country, what kind of cars you sell? What do you think?
Yeah, I can definitely talk to this one. Teresa, here's the thing. You need to know exactly how many customers are coming into your store at all times, and just by going to a managed floor, you're going to have accountability. But one thing about it is, right now, typically what we find is that on a walk-in guest, first-time walk-in visit, they're going to close somewhere around 14% on average. That's everyone collectively. You can increase that up to about 20% on average, okay, by really kind of going to a managed retail sales process and holding salespeople accountable to what you want. On your appointments, they're going to close somewhere between 45 and 50% on average, straight off the bat. And I can tell you, based on that 200 and something thousand records that we looked at last month alone, the average appointments to fresh guest ratio is about 13% nationwide. So for as many guests that you come in at walk-ins, you should have about 13% as appointments coming back in.
Wow. Okay, Teresa, do you have a follow-up question? Please write on in and let us know. Great question, Teresa.
And Liana?
Yes.
I want Clint to share one wow statistic that blew me away. He did some.
You mean another one? Because you guys have been sharing some really good ones.
No, this one's going to challenge people, and obviously this webinar will be watched by people after today as well. But Clint found there's basically an optimum number of fresh ups any one person should get a day. So when we saw a small percentage, but some people were saying that their salespeople are getting 4 fresh ups a day, Clint's research would say that is way too many fresh ups a day. You need to get some more salespeople. Clint, talk about that, because I think part of the optimization, and you could jump in here as well, is that giving a salesperson too many fresh ups in a managed retail sales process is also bad as well.
Sure. What happens is if we give them too many opportunities, they don't value those opportunities enough. And so therefore, you want to find what is really your sweet spot. Typically, what we find is about two customers or 2 fresh customers a day. If they work 20 days a month, that will get them 40 fresh walk-ins, and they can close up to 20% on those. equaling 8 deals. Now, if they're doing the right appointments to fresh guest ratio, setting 2 appointments a day, that would get them 40 appointments set. As we all know, only 50% of the appointments show at a 50% closing ratio. And then you're going to have a couple B-backs that show back up as well. So it's a very simple formula to be successful.
Now, to extend on that question, first of all, Linda said, can you please put that formula back up for a minute? And then Brett wrote in, what would the calculation be for a 100% internet-based dealer? Would that make it different?
So on the formula, you'll be able to get the copy of this webinar, correct, Eliana? That would probably be the best for them to be able to have that right in their own hands.
Yes, if anyone would like a copy of the slide deck, please email me directly at eliana@dealeron.com, and I will send that out to you as soon as I can.
And Brett, it was Brett who asked the question about the 100% internet?
Yes, sir, it was.
Okay. So Brett, just basically, if you take a look at a dealership, Clint showed the swim lanes graphics, leads that come in from your website or third-party lead sources, they get logged 100% in the dealership. So what we're talking about is really the sales floor, people who walk in without an appointment. So that formula wouldn't apply to an internet-only department because you have 100% of each opportunity logged in your CRM.
The only thing is, and Brett, you might want to expand on this if you're looking to talk about a store that's 100% internet-based and how you actually track the customers as they come in on appointment, correct? So if you want to expand on that or whatnot, please let us know on that question.
Brett, if you're going to write back in, I'd love to hear back from you. So write back on in and let's see if we can help you out, okay? Okay, let's see. This question comes in from Peter. He said, so is Next Up an addition to DealerOn or a part? You're so cute, Peter. Brian, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, so the Next Up is a separate organization. It works with any current CRM. So basically when a salesperson is on rotation and is with a customer, it will automatically log an opportunity in any CRM. So we didn't mention it, but it's good that you asked. Next Up is a platform-independent managed retail sales process. It works with every CRM platform, and as Joe mentioned, there's an easy way to do an audit that everything is working, meaning if you have 100 guests over a weekend logged into the Next Up, they should show 100 assigned opportunities to salespeople in your CRM, but they are separate products.
And one thing I'd like to add is, about this presentation today, we wanted to really expose that customers aren't getting logged, there's missing information, and to create a culture in our environment, in our industry that allows salespeople to be successful, allows people to come into our industry and have a fair shake. Very often a new salesperson will come in and they're not successful because they've got to go fight their way out to go getting customers. They don't have a book of business. And so they can't make a living, and so they leave and move on. So again, that's why we're challenging our industry to change and adapt and evolve.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for great answers. We have still a ton of questions from the audience. I did want to go back a couple steps. Linda, if you want to see that formula again, well, guess what? Our good friends at the Next Up, they just tweeted out that formula for you. So you can check them out at the Next Up and get that formula. And Brett did write back in. He said, yes, sorry, I was intending to ask about a goal closing ratio for internet only, since on-the-lot ratios should be about 25%. Brian, does that help answer Brett's question?
Did we lose him?
Brian?
And that's definitely Brian's wheelhouse in that area.
Sorry. I muted myself. I'm sorry. So, Brent, thank you for answering that question. Eliana was so nice about putting the book Selling Cars in a Digital Age in handouts. Okay, so in that book, we talk about setting expectations for an internet-only business. And let me just go quickly. We call it the 4x60 rule. Your internet-only dealership or your internet department should think of itself as a factory. Like you're going to make apple pies. If I give you flour, sugar, butter, and apples, and you're going to tell me how many pies you can make. If you don't hit that goal of pies, don't say, oh, we had a bad month in the bakery. You, if as a manager, would have to say, okay, we screwed up on the plating phase, or we screwed up on the burning or the cooking phase. You need to look at your appointments, your internet process like this. How many leads, what percent contact, what percent appointment, what percent sold, and what percent showed and sold. We call it the 4x60 rule. If you said 60% contact, 60% appointments, 60% showed, 60% sold, that's a 13% closing ratio. High-performing dealers in internet-only operations should be, with excellent processes, in the 18 to 20% closing ratio. The average in the industry is probably 9 or 10%. So what you need to do, and very few people do it, is your spreadsheet in an internet-only organization should have 4 columns: leads, contacts, appointments, show, and sold. And if any one of those steps is lower than your goal, then it's just a matter of retraining. Never go to the GM, never go to the dealer and say, we had a bad month in the internet department. I would fire somebody who came to me and said that. I would say, which step do you need retraining on? We cover that in the book, and hopefully by looking at your internet department as a factory with 4 steps, you can then train better phone skills or better appointment skills or better contact skills. That's the way you'll be able to improve, maintain, and succeed with those statistics.
Thank you so much. Brett, do you have any more comments for our presenters today? Right on in. You know we love hearing from you. All right, we're going to keep going with some of these wonderful questions you guys are writing in. Next question comes to you from Linda. Linda says, how do you set up your management on the floor? We have one manager that desks, handles dealer trades, manages 7 salespeople, and many other responsibilities. Do you have teams with leaders that help keep things in line, or multiple sales managers, or is one manager the dude? Brian? Clint? How do you do that with the closed sales team?
Definitely. I mean, I'll take this one for sure. I mean, you're running in a small team. That one manager is multitasking and probably missing a lot of opportunities that are happening on the showroom. Again, create some kind of culture or environment that allows that one manager to really have the insight of what's going on that showroom. And you're probably going to have to get that manager some support. Now, if there is a seasoned veteran or somebody of the dealership that can be involved as a team leader, I would suggest that. As far as cost factor, it would be a lot easier step. But if you could eventually get a hired team leader, you will see the benefit of that, of having a manager getting involved as early and as often as possible.
Ah, okay. Linda, I hope that helps you out. Another kind of setup question came in from Caroline. She says, would this closed sales system also apply with service equity customers?
So service equity customers, I mean, might need you to expand on that question a little bit more. Obviously, those are appointments coming in, I'm guessing, and so it's going to reward sales staff or the people that are working those appointments being able to stay inside of a queue, not missing their opportunity for their fresh guest as well.
Okay. All right, Caroline, if you have a follow-up question, I'd love to hear from you again, all right? By the way, Brett wrote in, thanks a bunch, Brian. That is exactly what I wanted to hear. All right. Martin, hey, Martin, how you doing? He says, so on the missing deals formula, would this number reflect the amount of deals that could have rescued as a BDC? What does your research show? That's from Martin.
Those are just missing guests altogether. Because if they were never logged in your CRM, you almost don't even know they existed.
Huh. Okay, he's asking, could you please put the formula slide up again? I think it's only back like 4 slides, I think.
I can if it's okay with you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That was fascinating. This slide is fascinating, and like we said, this formula was just tweeted out by The Next Up. So if you go to The Next Up, you'd be able to catch this on their Twitter feed.
Again, and they can take this formula one of two ways as well. You know, right now we're using the national average where it multiplies by 4. However, if you feel that you're closing at a higher than national average, multiply it by 3. If you feel like you're closing at a lower than national average, multiply that by 5.
Interesting. Okay, so Martin, I hope this helps you out. If you have a follow-up question regarding this formula, please send it on in and let us know if we can help you, all right? Let's just leave it up there for another minute or so, and then we'll go back to the slide with
Sure.
with your mugshots on it, okay? All right. Thank you so much for the great question, Martin. It's always nice to hear from you. Elmer, it's so very far away. Elmer's farther away than you are, Clint, right now. Let me just tell you.
Uh-oh.
Elmer's very far away, and he loves to come to our webinars. Thank you so much for being here again, Elmer. He says, question for Clint. Can you show the takeaway slide with the numbers on it? Oh, Elmer, I didn't read your question before I said that. Well, there you have it. Elmer, congratulations. All right, next question comes to you from Marcia. Marcia. Oh, I'm sure I'm the millionth.
And where was Elmer from? Where was Elmer from? How far was he out?
He's not in the United States, let's say that.
Wow.
He's very far away, okay?
Right.
Oh, he says the Netherlands. Thank you, Elmer.
Wow. Trying to do business there.
Okay, next question comes to you from Marcia. She says, how does a closed floor work for our senior sales staff that work mostly on appointments? I have one associate that never takes an up because he works solely on referrals and repeat customers. Well, that must be nice. How would this system work for him or other team members who have appointments set on a regular basis? This one again comes from Marcia.
Marcia, great question. I mean, one thing about it is the reason why that salesperson doesn't take any fresh customers is because they built up a book of business. And the idea is creating a culture that has the other sales portion of the staff working that way as well. When they're not in front of guests, they can be working and doing their due diligence, getting customers back in. However, what we find is that those salespeople that actually have a good book of business and customers coming in, they also do have attrition. So now this allows them to work in the queue and go up and spend only the necessary time it takes to getting a fresh new customer and add to their book of business. So it's efficient and effective for them. And now you're going to start seeing somebody like that who's a star player now taking those fresh walk-ins as well and increasing your business.
Great answer. Okay, Marcia, if you have a follow-up question, we'd love to hear from you. We're getting close to getting to the end over here. Next question for you gentlemen comes from Michael. He says, enjoyed the webinar. What advice would you have for a dealership with a BDC department? Does it make it any different?
Sure, I'll take that one as well. I mean, if you're BDC, and it kind of depends on the formula for your BDC, Michael, is your BDC actually setting appointments for the sales staff, or are they setting for the BDC team? So for instance, if they're setting the appointments and the customers are coming in, the person who's in the queue gets that customer. If it's not set for anybody specifically, they're going to work that opportunity after they're introduced to somebody from the team, whatnot, or a manager or VIP guest. And for instance, they're going to value their opportunities more. Now, if the BDC is doing outbound calls for appointment setting as well, you're going to see that 25 or more % increase in CRM logs. So it's just going to give you more opportunities, and it's going to snowball. So, I mean, we could actually get some more information for you if you expand on your question. And Joe, are you still on the call?
Joe Vickers, are you there, babe? Joe.
Because obviously they run with an internet and BDC department as well. So that's the only reason I brought it if he wanted to add to that, but that's fine.
I got you. Michael, if I were you, I'd reach out to one of these fine gentlemen and see if they might be able to help you further with your dealership and getting you a lift in sales.
I had a hard time getting unmuted there. Sorry about that.
I'm glad you're still here with us, Joe. Did you have anything to add for Michael? I mean, you're definitely coming from the dealership side, you know.
What was his question again?
What advice would you have for a dealership with a BDC department?
We have a BDC department, so that works perfect. Basically, my internet works like a BDC because they're taking all the incoming leads and creating the appointments, and the salesmen are actually working those deals. So it works great with that. And then, you know, we still track those ups coming in as we would any other up, and those are set up as appointments that are coming in.
Gotcha. Okay, so Joe, Clint, Michael did just write in. He says, my BDC sets the appointment, and when the customer arrives, we go to the desk, and through a red robin, a sales agent is chosen. And then he wrote in, we handle all inbound and outbound calls and emails, and even convert service customers to come to the sales floor.
Great, great. Well, you know what? I'll have a question for Michael, so maybe he can respond. How often have you called a customer a couple days later and realized that they actually showed up at the dealership but never was logged in the CRM?
Right? Michael,
so what
has that ever happened to you?
So now you're going to have 100% accountability of when customers are coming in. More customers are going to get logged into your CRM. It's going to give you more outbound. And another story that we have is, a store that had a BDC did a great job getting a customer in on a used R-Class Mercedes-Benz. The customer came in, the salesperson showed him the R-Class that they had. It was a little bit newer than what they wanted to purchase. The salesperson went to go get the customer's name and information and put him into the CRM that he had showed up. And as he was walking over, saw on the queue that he would have been about 12th position down, knew that he was on the morning shift, so he might not possibly have gotten another fresh customer today. Turned around, walked back out, and sold him an E-Class. Totally different type of vehicle. What it showed is that they rolled up their sleeves and became a salesperson, and they loved the one that they were with.
That's a great story. Okay, so Michael, if you have a follow-up question or comment, we'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, feel free to contact Clint on your own. His phone number and email address is on the screen. I would highly recommend it. I got to know him over this whole webinar business, and he is pretty cool, I might say. All right. Next question comes to you from today's winner. Oh, Michael says thank you, guys, by the way. Next questions come to you from Poya, today's winner. Question for Clint. Do dealerships need to assign an employee to manage the Next Up software daily?
Poya, by the way, congratulations. That's going to be a great prize for you. Again, it just depends. There are dealerships that do assign somebody or have a champion assigned to a process. Again, a managed retail sales process doesn't necessarily have to be the Next Up, but you do want to have somebody that's involved, that's looking at what's going on. You can't just expect to put any kind of process or culture change within your store and just expect it to do better. Any habit takes, or culture change takes about 21 days to become that habit or culture within your organization.
And we just have a handful of questions left, so we're going to try and get through these. But follow-up question from Poya. By the way, he says thanks. Poya also says, is there a trial version of the Next Up that I can take to my dealership management, or I can put you in contact with them to give them a presentation on the Next Up? Whoa, Poya, you're asking all the right questions.
Yeah, Poya, thank you for the interest, and again, congratulations. I'll make sure that either myself personally can set up a time to give you a presentation demonstration, or our VP of Sale, Mark Stringfellow, as well. We'll take care of you guys.
Thank you so much. Okay, let's get to Linda's question. Actually, Caroline. Caroline wrote in, she says, my follow-up for the service equity question is because we are from a smaller dealership, so most of our sales are from the internet and service turnovers.
Great. So, Caroline, the one question that I'm going to bring back up to you, and I apologize to answer a question with a question, is you have a retail facility, so you do have customers coming in, correct? But the real question is how many customers are being missed out there. So I'm not saying that we're going to ignore those service guests, but if you are doing really well in the service drive or mining those people, create a culture that allows salespeople to handle those guests, meaning have the accountability on the showroom, what's really coming in. But say, for instance, you have a queue of 5 or 6 salespeople, And you could create a guideline or rule around your store that meets your store's needs, meaning the person at the bottom of the list could be tasked to do things, meaning they could be in the service drive 100% of that time during that time. A lot of stores are concerned about their phone calls. Think about your phone calls in an open floor environment. When a phone call comes in, quite possibly the phone rings, the receptionist gets the call, transfers it out to whoever's the fastest on the showroom floor to get the call. Now, if a walk-in comes in at that same time, who are they more concerned with? So by putting salespeople on the same queue, you can create a process around the inbound phone calls. We recommend that you give it to the person at the bottom of the queue. The person that's the furthest away from getting a fresh walk-in opportunity is going to pay the most attention and concern with the customer on your phone.
Thank you so much. Caroline, love to hear back from you if you have another comment or question. And we're just going to get to these last few questions. If you haven't gotten your question in yet, you better hurry up because we're going to close out the show soon. Your next question comes to you, gentlemen, from Linda. Linda says, how do you handle the third-party customer who doesn't set an appointment but shows up and asks or doesn't ask for the salesperson who's been handling the lead? Does the salesperson who handled the lead and did something to get them in the door, or the next salesperson who is in rotation, quote unquote, get the customer? I don't know if that's a question for Joe or if Clint, you want to take that.
I definitely can answer it. I don't know if Joe, you want to answer that as well, because it's similar to what you're doing in your internet and BDC department.
Yeah, when our customers come in that are scheduled through our BDC internet, the customer comes in and we do a transfer of trust. So we'll bring the person out from internet to set the appointment. They'll come out, talk to the customer, let them know that someone's going to actually take them out there and help them land on the car and move that process along for them. So we work off of two things. We work off of EMI, like they mentioned before, early management intervention, and then transfer of trust. Those are our two biggest things for helping this thing work.
Linda wrote in, well, what if they didn't set the appointment?
If internet didn't set the appointment?
I'm going to guess that's what she says. Linda?
Okay, so then...
She said yes.
Okay, so a fresh customer walking in is what we're talking about then?
It sounds like it might be a be-back situation where possibly the customer had purchased the vehicle maybe from the dealership a couple years prior, didn't call in, didn't set an appointment, but came back in. Most likely that customer, if they didn't ask for the salesperson that they bought the car from 2 or 3 years prior, is just going to go and get greeted by whoever's first in the queue, and that person's going to help that guest.
Well,
now, when they go to log that customer, oh, go on.
I was going to say she just wrote in not a be-back.
Not a be-back.
Not a be-back.
Okay.
Let me read the question again. How do you handle the third-party customer who doesn't set an appointment but shows up and asks or doesn't ask for the salesperson who's been handling the lead? Does the salesperson who handled the lead and did something to get them in the door, or the next salesperson who's in the rotation get the customer? So this person, this customer submitted a third-party lead, so they are already in the CRM. They just didn't set an appointment. They just walked in.
Okay, so let me answer that. In our store, if that particular customer had contact with another person prior, and our salesperson has what we refer to as a 72-hour protection. So if they have them logged in the CRM, then they're protected for 72 hours. If they haven't had contact with them in the last 72 hours, then there is no protection. Even if they come in and they don't say, well, I was talking to so-and-so, when the salesman greets the customer and they go to the CRM to log them as being there as a floor-up or a meeting note if there was an appointment, then at that time they're going to notice that somebody else is involved. So we like to maintain the professionalism on our side where the floor actively works together and not against each other, and they'll get that person. If that person's not available, then they'll continue to work the deal, and that's how we solve that problem to be a half deal.
Joe, look at you coming up with all the awesome ideas. Linda wrote in, awesome, I love the 72-hour protection idea. So, Linda, I hope that helps you out. And great answers, gentlemen. Last couple of questions. Jerry has the next question. He says, so does it take double entry for the two systems to work, the CRM and the Next Up?
No, they are two separate systems. However, there's no double entry of the client information. We're not capturing client information. Again, we're just talking about a managed retail sales process. However, with using the Next Up, when a salesperson's with a guest and they've been with a guest for a determined amount of time, we can create an open record within the CRM saying that this specific salesperson at this specific time is with a guest and have a one-to-one relationship, so that you know how many customers came in on the showroom versus an open record in the CRM that they log or merge against a previous customer.
Ah, very cool. Okay, really interesting question just came in from Andy. He says, what is in place to prevent a salesperson, ooh, this is tricky. What is in place to prevent a salesperson from entering misspellings or other erroneous information to prevent splitting a deal? It would create a duplicate customer in the CRM. Ooh, tricky. I wouldn't even have thought to do that.
Hey, Clint, do you mind if I talk about that one?
Yeah, that's definitely your wheelhouse for sure.
Come on, Joe.
Okay.
Give us your words of wisdom.
So there's really no way in a CRM to prevent that from happening. That's a character issue. It has nothing to do with the tools you're using. That's the person. So now it becomes a can't or won't. So you either have somebody that doesn't have the ability to enter the right information or won't enter the right information, which is attitude, right? So that's just counseling the person, because anybody that you have in your staff that's willing to steal from somebody else that he works with may not be the right person. It goes back to, do I have the right people? So in our CRM system, you can tell there's going to be similarities. It'll give a partial match if the phone number is the same, if the email is the same, if the address is the same, if the name is the same, even if it's spelled a little bit differently. So there's ways to find that, but I find in our staff that they've learned, by example of other employees that they worked with before, that we will not tolerate anything that comes with stealing from another salesperson.
Now, this is really, because Linda also wrote in, she says, great question. We also have salespeople who are like that, who misspell names, change a phone number or email address so it doesn't skate. And Andy wrote back in, got it. I was curious whether the Next Up system had safeguards against sneaky salespeople. Awesome. Thank you so much for that. What a great question. I wouldn't even have thought about that. That's crazy. Okay, your last question comes to you from Jeff. He says, we have a retail store that has 2 sales with 1 BDC. Can you see a future where staffing will be 2 BDC and 1 salesperson? We are small enough that duties are shared.
Brian, do you want to talk about that one?
Brian? Did we lose Brian?
Ellie, can you just repeat that question?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm not sure I did it.
This is from Jeff, and he says, we have a retail store that has 2 sales and 1 BDC. Can you see a future where staffing will be 2 BDC and 1 salesperson? We are small enough that duties are shared.
Well, there's a whole conversation on whether there should be a BDC. David Kane, who's a respected trainer in the industry, has really talked about a business development dealership. Shouldn't we be moving to a point where all dealership employees know how to use the CRM, how all dealership employees have a competent internet sales process, meaning that it's very common when you have a BDC, if the BDC manager leaves or 2 or 3 people leave, it's very disruptive, meaning, I understand the need for a good BDC, got it. But there is a future where I think that the industry moves to a skill set where everyone is competent at the skills needed to engage today's consumers.
Oh, he liked that answer. Last question. It's not really, it is a question. It comes in from John, and this is for you, Brian. He says, how does Brian Pasch keep looking so young? What is he, about 30 in that picture? And John, I think it must be all of the nice wine that he's drinking. I'm trying that route myself. It's not working the same on me. But
it's the pickling effect of wine.
It is wine.
Oh, that was great. That was great. Clint, Brian, and Joe, what a pleasure it was to have all 3 of you on here today. I got to tell you, I learned a lot, and this is new, astounding, it's fresh, it's cutting edge, and by the research that was shown, boy oh boy, it looks like it's definitely something that every dealership should take a serious look at. So I thank you so much for bringing it to our attention. This is wonderful.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Thank you. Oh, Caroline wrote in, thank you guys. This has been great. I couldn't say that I don't agree. I want to remind the audience a link to download a copy of this webinar recording will be emailed to you later today for your reference. Please feel free to share it with your friends and colleagues. If you haven't had a chance to download those handouts, there's 2 of them in the handout section of the GoToWebinar interface. Get those quickly because I'm going to be closing out the webinar soon. Again, today's webinar is going to be posted online within 24 hours. All you have to do is go to DealerOn.com/webinars. You can view our upcoming webinar schedule or access any of our past webinars too. And if you did want a copy of this slide deck, don't forget to write to me, email me at eliana@dealeron.com, and I'll get that out to you later today. Also, this webinar is going to conclude in just a moment, and when it does, you're going to receive a short survey. I got to know what you thought about today's presentation. Did you love it? Did you like it? Did you hate it? There's no possible way you could have hated it. Please fill it out. We always want to know what you're thinking about our webinars. Today we're going to randomly select a couple of people from all the completed surveys to also win some Google prizes. And invitations will be going out tomorrow for our next webinar. That's right. It's the DealerOn Academy Q3 Automotive Marketing Briefing. Join members of the DealerOn executive team to discuss current automotive marketing updates, industry perspectives, and best practices. This is an interactive webinar where the majority of time is dedicated to Q&A from the audience. The collective knowledge of DealerOn's leadership team covers a broad array of topics, including retail automotive, marketing, technology, and service experience. Don't miss the Q3 Automotive Marketing Briefing with DealerOn executive team. This is your opportunity to ask questions and hear from the most knowledgeable leadership team in the automotive industry. So join us. You're going to hear from our CEO and co-founder, Ali Amirazvani, the co-founder and executive vice president of DealerOn, Amir Amirazvani, the chief marketing officer, Chris Daringer, our EVP of business development, Jeff Clark, the vice president of marketing, Sean Rains, the Vice President of Sales Operations, Jason Azell, and our brand new Director of Search and Social, Greg Gifford. Our first 2 quarterly marketing briefings were nothing short of amazing, so don't miss this one. And don't forget, DealerOn's weekly webinars are held Thursdays, 12 noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Mountain, and 9 a.m. Pacific. And if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions regarding these webinars and our topics, hey, contact me directly. I love hearing from you. Again, my name is Eliana Raggio, and you can track me down online. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, and all the automotive social networks, or you can email me directly at eliana@dealeron.com. Thank you all so very much for spending this time with us today, and I hope to see you all on another webinar in DealerOn's continuing education series. Take care.